So the next step is I'm going to paint some tattoos. And you'll notice I'm not actually done with the skin tone yet. But what I like to do is I like to paint my tattoos prior to doing some glazing on the skins and doing my shadows, because ultimately I want the tattoos to feel like they're in the skin and not on top of the skin as war paint would look. So doing that prior to finishing the skin tone gives me an opportunity to help it fade into the flesh color. My favorite color for doing tattoos is Scale Colors Fantasy and Games Ryla Gray. I think this looks a nice kind of greenish blue, a dark greenish blue, which is the color that tattoos start to fade to over time when they're done in most dark tattoo color, I guess is what best I can call it. Now, depending on the tattoo itself, will depend on how much pre-planning I do from what the design is going to be. I'm really just going to do tattoos on her left arm. And so since I'm just tattooing her left arm, and I'm just going to kind of do some knots or some scroll work things in for her arm, and it's not too large of a space, I'm not going to pre-plan it quite as extensively as I would if it was a larger model or a larger surface area where I want to have a particular design, like have a phoenix or a dragon or something like that tattooed. This is just going to be free form arm tattoo. So just going to see what develops as I go. I usually like to start off with some kind of strong geometric foundation. So I'm going to start off with a pattern. It's just kind of a repeated zigzag. It's going to be an armband tattoo, essentially. I'm trying to be very careful with this, although it's not the end of the world if I make a small mistake, because I can still touch it up with the flesh tone color. So the brush I'm using here is a Winsor & Newton 000. The reason I like this, there's certainly, if you have a good brush, it doesn't really matter exactly the size. You can do this tattoo work with a size 1 brush if you want. It certainly has the tip for it if it's a good brush. But what I find is the higher the number, the more paint that it holds. And so when you're doing really meticulous detail work like this, if your brush is holding too much paint, it could release on you at the wrong time and just flood your model with paint, which is not what you want, especially when it's a dark color going over a light flesh tone like this. So that gives us a nice strong starting point, and then off of that, I'm just going to play a little bit. So maybe just above that, she's got this kind of scrolly tattoo that meets in an interesting design right on her shoulder. Sometimes I have to remind myself to breathe while I'm painting detail like this. when in doubt, dots can work. You know, you model this scale, you have no idea what those things look like when they're up close. Maybe they keep track of her kills. How many orcs she's downed. All right, so we finished the touch-up. So we now have her skin based. We have it highlighted and layered up. We have her eyes finished and some of the tattoos on her left arm. So in our next session, we're going to shade the skin, and we're also going to start to give it some of that reddish tone that I'm going to be looking for.